I was home alone on Halloween, rain drilling the gutters. A movie paused on a frame of some rubber mask. The house felt smaller than usual. I told myself I liked it that way. The power flickered twice before settling into that low hum. I made rounds like my mom does, checked the back door, slid the deadbolt, set the chain on the front. The porch light threw a weak cone across the wet steps. Wind pushed leaves into the railings. When the doorbell rang, it sounded thin like it came from underwater. I killed the porch light and parted the curtain. Nobody was on the steps. No costumes. No parents with umbrellas. Just the reflection of my own face in the glass in the street, empty except for a trash bin tipped on its side. The doorbell rang again, softer, then stopped. I waited. All I heard was rain. I turned away and the knock came from the living room window. 2 quick taps, not hard, just deliberate. My skin went cold. I swore I would not do the horror movie thing and look. I looked anyway. A man stood outside in the dark, close enough that his breath should have fogged the glass, except I could not see breath at all. Hoodie up, wet hair stuck to his forehead. No mask. The porch light was off, but a street glow caught his eyes just enough. He did not smile, he did not move. He just watched me, head slightly tilted like he was listening to something I could not hear. I stepped back and my heel hit the coffee table. Remote clacked to the floor. I reached for my phone. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped it. I dialed Mom, then stopped. She was hours away. I dialed the non-emergency police line, then hung up. It felt like making noise would break something fragile and let him in. I cut the living room lamp. The reflection on the window took over the glass, and for a second I could pretend he was gone. Then a wet fingertip traced down the pane. A line. Another. He was drawing nothing special, just slow, even strokes you could feel in your teeth. I moved to the hallway where he could not see me straight on and checked the side window. He followed, not fast, just steady, coming along the wall like he already knew the layout. His eyes tracked the dark inside like he was counting doors. I took the safety bar and wedged it under the back door knob. I checked the kitchen window lock with clumsy fingers. Rain boomed on the metal awning over the stoop. The house felt like a ship with water pressing in on every side. My phone lit with a call from an unknown number. I let it ring, dying to hear a voice that would make this normal, a delivery, a prank, anything. It rang out. A text came. "Are you alone?" I killed notifications. The knock came again on the living room window, a bit harder, and then I saw his mouth move. He spoke, but I heard nothing through the glass. My phone buzzed a second time and I answered on reflex, whispering hello even though I knew I should not. No static, no delay. A man's voice, calm and close, said my name exactly right. "Why did you turn off the lights?" he asked. The call stayed open. In the window, his lips matched the words. And then from upstairs, a floorboard answered with a slow, unmistakable step. I tried to breathe like someone taught you in a video. Slow in, slow out. But my chest kept hiccuping. The man at the window stayed where he was. He didn't move away when I switched rooms. The shadow of him slid along the glass as if he were glued to the house. I called the non-emergency number again and actually stayed on the line this time, whispering so the operator wouldn't hear me breathe too loud. I told them there was someone outside, that I was alone, that they were watching the house. "We'll send a patrol," the voice said, the kind of voice that felt like a promise, but not the sort that arrives on time. They asked for my address twice, I gave it. I hung up when the man at the window tapped his knuckles twice, slow and polite. The call hadn't even been off the line for a minute. I checked every lock again. Deadbolt. Chain. The slide bolt on the basement door. Each time I touched a latch, my fingers trembled like they were cold even though the house was warm. The rain sounded closer now, but only because the world had shrunk to the window and the knot between my shoulder blades. From the hallway, I watched him through the thin strip of light between blinds. He was not doing anything you could explain, not pacing, not waving. He stood like a painting you'd stare at for too long and start to imagine movement. Once he lifted a hand and laid it flat against the glass right where my face showed up in the reflection. A perfect wet circle appeared and spread down like ink. I tried to think of what to do. The police were on their way. I told myself to keep moving, to be useful. I opened the freezer and shoved ice into a bag because motion distracts the brain. I checked the back door again and found damp footprints on the concrete outside. 1, 2, 3 in a straight line to the side yard. They were not mine, not from earlier, not from anyone who'd come in shoes. The prints were small and neat, like someone walked on tiptoe with wet soles. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again and again, impatient. I looked at the screen and saw a line of texts stacked on top of each other, all from the same unknown number. Are you alone? Why did you turn out the lights? Come to the window, don't be scared. My hands went numb holding the phone. I typed, "Who is this?" and hit send the way you hit a horn in traffic to get someone's attention. The reply was immediate. You answered the first time. I tried to tell myself the number was a prank. Teenagers hunting for scares, a drunk neighbor. Anything but what the house smelled like now. Wet wood and something metallic under it, like a rusted hinge. I told myself the man couldn't come inside. I told myself the locks meant something. Then I found the handprints upstairs. I'd been careful not to make noise, but my foot caught on a rug and I swore. And the man at the window tapped the glass twice like applause. The hallway upstairs was darker than downstairs. The lights on the landing were blinking in a slow, sad Morse. I moved toward my bedroom and stopped in the doorway. There, on the window that faces the side yard, were 5 handprints, tracked in water up over the frame. They started low, climbed past the sill, and stopped at the height of a head. I pressed my palm to the cool wood of the window and felt the wet smear. My breath puffed out in front of my face. The prints were fresh. The smear led to small scratches along the outside of the frame like someone had tried to find a grip. My phone buzzed again. This time the text was different. I'm already inside. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and skidded under the bed. The sound, tiny, ridiculous, felt enormous. A slow, hard scrape answered from the ceiling above me, like a shoe dragging across floorboards. It came from the attic hatch. Something heavy tapped the attic ladder twice. The sound above me was steady. Scrape, pause, scrape, like someone careful not to rush. The attic ladder never opened, but the noise kept shifting from one corner of the ceiling to the other. My pulse hammered in my throat so hard I almost gagged. I backed down the hall trying to remember every lock I'd set. My phone was still under the bed upstairs, buzzing against the floorboards, the screen lighting a soft glow under the frame. The vibration stopped. Silence. Then a new buzz came from the kitchen counter downstairs. My other phone, the landline handset nobody used. I crept down, each step groaning even when I tried to land light. The handset screen blinked. Line in use. I pressed it to my ear. Nothing at first, then breath. Slow, patient, male. My name, spoken once, stretched long. I hung up. The line stayed lit, as if someone else had picked up another receiver, except there was only one in the house. The knock came again on the living room window. I turned, expecting him, the same man outside. But the glass was empty now. Rain poured, street lamp burned, porch glistened. No figure, no hoodie. The knock came again on the living room window. I turned, expecting him, the same man outside. But the glass was empty now. Rain poured, street lamp burned, porch glistened. No figure, no hoodie. The knock came a second time, from behind me. I spun. The sound came from the inside of the front door. Every lock was still set. The chain hung. The deadbolt sat straight. But the wood flexed with the knock, 3 measured raps that belonged to someone who knew the rhythm of the house. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and pressed myself against the cabinets. My breath whistled in the dark. A wet print appeared on the linoleum, clear as if someone had just stepped out of the rain. Then another. Bare feet. They crossed the kitchen slow, toward the stairs. I followed them with my eyes, too afraid to move. They climbed the steps one by one, leaving small puddles that spread into the rug. Above, the attic scrape started again. Whoever it was had 2 places at once. I bolted for the back door, ripping the bar off the knob. The deadbolt wouldn't slide. I threw my shoulder against the wood, but it didn't budge. My phone buzzed again upstairs, faint, muffled. The screen of the landline blinked with one new message. I forced myself to read it. "Don't run, look up." I did. The attic hatch at the top of the stairs had shifted open 2 inches. Wet, stringy hair dangled through the crack, swaying with the draft. The lights died. Total dark, except the glow of my phone screen still under the bed upstairs. Footsteps moved on the carpet above me, then on the stairs, then on the floor right behind me. The last thing I heard before I dropped the knife was the man's voice right against my ear, calm and wet. "Thanks for letting me in." I felt the warmth drain from my hands first, then my legs, as if something crawled through my skin from the inside, pulling every drop of strength. The room spun slowly, the furniture dissolving into shadow. The floor gave way before I even realized I had fallen. I don't remember closing my eyes, but behind my eyelids I saw the reflection in the window. In the glass, it wasn't my face anymore. It was his. Wet hair, gray skin, eyes fixed and hollow. He wasn't outside. He was where I should have been. My chest tried to draw in air but didn't obey. The sound that came out wasn't mine. It was a long, cold breath, like wind slipping through cracks. My hands moved, but they weren't guided by me. In that instant, I understood I was no longer alone in my body, and soon I wouldn't be in it at all. The last sensation was the metallic taste in my mouth, like rust. Then, only silence. Outside, the rain stopped. The street lamp lit the porch. Anyone passing by would swear they saw someone standing in the living room window, motionless, staring out. But it was no longer me. I put the costume on because it was cheap and I was late. The rain was coming down hard and Halloween doesn't wait. The thrift shop smell stuck to it even after I aired it out. Mothballs, old wood, a hint of something sweet and stale. Black dress, rough at the seams. Liner scratched my ribs. The hat was tall and stiff, with a limp ribbon that left a waxy feel on my fingers. A tag sewn inside the collar had a name half picked away by someone's careful nails. The rest of the writing was clean. "Do not remove lining." I ran a hand along the inside and felt tiny bumps like hidden pins or beads. When I shook the dress, something clicked softly, as if parts of it answered each other. I told myself it was vintage junk. I slid the dress over my head, pulled on tights, laced my boots. The zipper stuck at my spine. I tugged once, twice. It went up with a sound like a small breath. Cold ran over my skin even though my room was warm. The mirror showed me an older version of myself. Tired eyes, rain hair, but the costume did the heavy lifting. I looked like I had put in effort. Good enough. Downstairs, the house felt too quiet. The heater hummed, then stuttered. Pipes clicked. The brim of the hat brushed the doorframe and made a dry paper sound. Outside, the wind carried those chimes the neighbors hang every year. We do not have a tree out front, but the chimes rang anyway. I checked my phone. Messages lit up from friends asking where I was. I typed on my way, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the rain. The hat kept the water off my face but fed the sound straight into my ears. Each drop drummed the felt. Streetlights made the puddles look like open eyes. I walked to the bus stop because parking near the party would be a lost cause. A guy in a plastic devil mask passed me and lifted a hand. I lifted mine back. He kept walking, then stopped, then turned. He stared a little too long. When a car splashed between us, he was gone. No big deal, I told myself. Big nights pull out the weird. On the bus, the costume sat heavy like wet towels. I kept tugging the collar. The bumps under the lining pressed my skin. The more I moved, the more they seemed to settle into place, like the dress was finding its grip. An old woman across the aisle watched me. No costume, no smile. Her eyes tracked the hat, then the ribbon, then the seam at my throat. She mouthed something I could not hear. The bus hissed to a stop. She stood, leaned close, and in a voice just for me said, "You should not wear a mouth." I almost laughed, then didn't. The doors folded open and she stepped off into the rain without looking back. At the party house, bass leaked through the windows. Orange bulbs, paper bats, fake crime scene tape. Inside it was heat and sweat and sweet punch. The dress got even heavier. Friends pulled me in for pictures. The flash made the room stutter. I smiled. The hat shadow covered my eyes. Every time I lifted the brim, it drifted back down like it wanted my face. People shouted my name over the music, and the brim funneled their voices into one narrow stream right into my ear. It made my name sound wrong, too sharp, too clean. In the hallway line for the bathroom, I felt the ribbon slide against my neck. Not a slip, more like a gentle tug from a hand. I reached up and found the bow cinched tighter. I loosened it. The knot tightened itself again. I swallowed. The door opened. Steam rolled out. I stepped in, locked it, and faced the mirror. I locked the bathroom door and read the text again. Say the words, no number, no name. Just that. Steam fogged the mirror even though the shower was cold. I wiped a circle with my sleeve. The hat brim slid down on its own and covered my eyes. I pushed it up. It drifted back like it had weight. The ribbon on my throat pulled tighter, a slow draw, like someone testing a knot from behind. Not funny, I said, loud enough for the music outside to answer. Bass boomed. Someone laughed in the hall. I loosened the bow. The bow cinched itself back. I tried again. It fought back again. Tiny bumps pressed through the lining along my ribs. They weren't random anymore. They lined up top and bottom like two rows trying to meet. My phone buzzed on the sink. Another text. Say the words and breathe. I typed, wrong number. The send bar stalled, then failed. No signal. Of course. The light flickered. The hat tipped. In the fogged glass, my outline looked like me, but the mouth was slightly open even though mine was closed. I watched for a full breath. My reflection breathed out, then in. I felt air move under the lining at the same time, cool, like someone inhaled through cloth. I yanked the zipper. It wouldn't go. I twisted, bracing one arm on the sink, and pulled until the teeth scraped. Nothing. The collar dragged my skin as if it wanted a better fit. I slid a finger under the seam and touched one of the bumps. Not a bead, not a pin. It felt like a hard nub with a faint groove across the face. A tooth. I jerked my hand back. The brim dropped and tapped the bridge of my nose. Someone hammered the door. "Hurry up," a girl shouted. "We're doing a circle in the living room." I opened the door because being alone in there felt worse. The hallway air was colder. A string of orange lights buzzed overhead. People moved in a sloppy line toward the couch, a bowl of candy passing from hand to hand. I scanned for my friends. I saw costumes I recognized, not faces I needed. The devil mask from the sidewalk stood in a corner staring. When I blinked, it was just a coat on a rack. In the living room, someone had set out a cheap spirit board, the kind from a drugstore. The planchette sat in the middle like a little plastic beak. "Come on, witch," a guy in a pirate hat said, half drunk. "Sit. We need 4. I didn't want to sit, but sitting looked normal. I sat. 4 sets of fingers rested on the planchette. The board smelled like wet cardboard. The hat brim cut my side vision. I had to tilt my head to see everyone. The ribbon tickled my pulse. "Ask a question," someone said. "Who wore this before me?" I heard myself say. I didn't plan those words. They were already on my tongue. The planchette jerked. L. Then E. Then N. "Lena," someone guessed. "That your mom's name?" "Shut up," another said, nervous laughing. "Keep going." The planchette kept moving. A. Then an O that took too long, like it was grinding around something sticky. The dress tightened a notch, enough that I had to adjust my breath. The bumps pressed harder, aligning. "Okay, I'm out," the pirate said, pulling his hand away. The planchette didn't stop. Our 3 hands slid with it, no friction. It spelled loan, then ode. "Dumb," a girl said, but her voice shook. The front door opened. Wind shoved wet air into the room. The chimes outside rang once. Everyone turned. Nobody was there. When they looked back, the planchette had moved to yes without our fingers. My phone buzzed in my palm. "Say the words you promised." "I didn't promise anything," I said, too loud. Music paused in another room. A couple of people looked at me like I was the one killing the vibe. I stood. The dress pinched my hips, refusing. I forced a step. It allowed a tiny give, as if it was thinking about it. I pushed through the kitchen out to the back porch for air. Rain tapped the roof. The fabric finally let me pull a long breath, then squeezed again like it didn't like me outside. I checked the tag under the collar with shaking hands. The stitched name wasn't only a name. There was a faint stamp below it, almost gone. A line drawing of a storefront, and under it a short word burned into the cloth. The letters thin and exact. Mercy's. My throat went dry. Mercy's burned down years ago. Everyone in our town knows that story. The hat leaned forward, brimmed to my lips as if to hush me. The ribbon climbed my neck a hair higher. From inside the dress, near my sternum, something clicked. Top row and bottom row finally meeting. A small, cold breath moved across my skin from the inside out. Then the porch light died, and in the window glass I watched my reflection lean in close and whisper into my ear, with a mouth I could not see move at all. "Say the words." The porch light stayed dead. Rain hissed on the roof. My reflection in the window leaned closer even though I wasn't moving. It whispered the same words again. "Say the words." I pulled at the zipper until my shoulder burned. It wouldn't go. The lining clicked inside me, tooth to tooth. The dress didn't feel like fabric anymore, it felt like a cage. My phone lit up in my palm, wet screen glowing. Another message from the unknown number. "Return what was borrowed." I ran back through the kitchen. The party was breaking apart anyway, half the guests drunk, the other half spooked by the sudden blackout. My friends shouted my name, but the hat funneled their voices into a single hiss that didn't sound like my name anymore. The ribbon tightened every time someone spoke it, like the costume was jealous of hearing it out loud. Upstairs I found a quiet room. Boxes stacked against one wall, an unplugged lamp in the corner. I shut the door, flicked on the phone flashlight, and checked the collar again. The faded stamp was clear now, darker than before. Mercy's Costumes. The store that had burned down 10 years ago. No survivors. Everyone knew the story. The owners had died inside. The lining pressed again, harder. Something cold brushed the inside of my ribs. My breath caught. I whispered, "What do you want?" The mirror on the closet door fogged over like lungs exhaling. Words etched themselves into the mist. "Give it back." I grabbed the hat and yanked. The brim snapped my wrist away. I clawed at the ribbon. It burned my fingers. I dropped to my knees and pulled at the hem. The dress clung like skin. The harder I fought, the tighter it got. My vision blurred at the edges. The phone buzzed one last time. The text read, "Mercy's, midnight, or you keep it." I didn't know what keep it meant until the costume finally let me take one full breath. The air inside wasn't mine. It was heavy, stale, like a basement that's been sealed too long. A voice filled my head, not through my ears but from under my skin. "Say the words, and I'll wear you instead." The closet mirror cleared. A face stared back. Young woman, blackened around the eyes, mouth stitched in the same pattern as the lining bumps. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her. She leaned closer until her forehead touched the glass. My reflection didn't follow, it just sat behind her, waiting, behind her. I bolted. Downstairs, through the living room, past people who barely noticed me now. The front door was open. Rain hammered the porch. I ran until the houses blurred. Past blocks I barely recognized. Toward the place nobody visited anymore. The husk of Mercy's. The shop was still boarded, roof sagging. Broken signs swung in the wind. Midnight was seconds away. I felt it in the pressure of the costume. The dress clamped my chest so tight I almost blacked out. I shoved the door until the boards gave. Dust and rot swallowed me whole. Inside, racks of burned cloth stood like skeletons. My phone blinked 0 bars, then went black. The costume dragged me forward, each step not mine. At the center of the room, a single mannequin waited. No head, no arms, just a torso wrapped in ash. The zipper slid down on its own. The lining loosened. The costume peeled itself away and climbed back onto the mannequin. The ribbon tied neat, the hat settled. The dress stood there, empty, but not lifeless. I stumbled out into the rain with only my boots and soaked tights. The night air hurt like knives. Behind me, the boards on the shop door swung back into place. The sign creaked once, then stopped. At home, I found the tag still pressed into my skin where the collar had burned me. One word branded there in thin red letters: loaned. And on my porch the next morning, folded neat on the mat, was the hat. The ribbon was tied in a bow, waiting. I only needed one last house, one more bag of cheap candy. Then I saw the porch with no lights. It was Halloween night, wet and cold, the kind of rain that hangs in the air like breath. My sneakers made that sticky sound on the sidewalk, and the plastic pumpkin tapped my knee with every step. The rest of the block glowed orange and purple. Fake cobwebs, plastic skeletons, motion sensor witches. But this house sat in the dark like it didn't get the memo. No jack-o'-lanterns, no wreath. Just a sagging porch and a door the color of old teeth. I should have kept walking. Instead, I climbed the steps, heart thudding hard enough to feel in my throat. Halfway up, I noticed the paper sign tacked crooked to the post. The ink had run in the drizzle, but I could still read it. Do not knock after midnight. I looked down at my phone. The lock screen glared 11:58. Close enough to be funny, I thought. I knocked anyway, just 3 quick knocks because I was 18 now, not a scared kid, and the street was full of people and laughter. Except the second my knuckles left the wood, the block behind me seemed to swallow its own noise. No footsteps, no laughter. Only the rain ticking on leaves and the porch roof. The door creaked inward on its own. Not wide, just enough to show a slice of the hallway, dark wallpaper, a narrow runner, a hat stand with no hats. The smell that leaked out was weirdly sweet, like blown-out candles and something damp underneath. I leaned in and said, "Trick or treat?" My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to, swallowed by the hall. No answer. I thought maybe they'd left a bowl of candy just inside. A lot of people did that. My hand found the doorknob, cold as a coin in winter. I pushed the door the rest of the way and the hinges screamed. I thought maybe they'd left a bowl of candy just inside. A lot of people did that. My hand found the doorknob, cold as a coin in winter. I pushed the door the rest of the way and the hinges screamed. Inside, the air felt heavier. The floor complained at every step, long boards flexing under my weight. A wall clock ticked somewhere I couldn't see, slow, loud, like it had to push each second uphill. I kept telling myself to grab the bowl and bail, but there was no bowl by the mat. Only a small chalkboard nailed beside the frame. Writing covered it in a careful, looping hand. House rules: do not look in the mirror, do not take what is not offered. Do not speak your true name. The rain stiffened outside, rattling the porch roof. I laughed once, weak, like it was all part of a neighborhood gag. "Okay, funny," I said, not loud, just enough to hear a voice in the room. I took another step, eyes adjusting. The hallway ran longer than it should have, stretched like someone had pulled it like taffy. On the left, framed pictures in ovals, faces bleached by time, eyes turned gray. On the right, a table with a candy dish that wasn't candy. Wrapped shapes, but the wrappers were crinkled parchment. No logos, tied with thin cord. I reached toward one, the way you reach toward a hot pan even though you know better. The chalkboard rule flashed in my head. Do not take what is not offered. I pulled my hand back and wiped my palm on my damp costume. The wall clock ticked again, and I realized it wasn't just ticking, it was counting down. A slow, descending chime beneath the ticks, like a tiny bell losing air. I checked my phone. 11:59. 1 minute to be an idiot or to grow up and leave. Something brushed the runner behind me. A soft drag, like fabric over wood. I spun so fast my pumpkin bag slapped my leg. The door had drifted almost shut. I hadn't heard it move, but the slice of street light was thinner now. The world outside shrunk to a wet silver sliver. My mouth felt cotton dry. "Hello?" I said, and the house answered with a soft thud somewhere deeper. Maybe a door closing, maybe a foot on a loose board. Then I saw the mirror. Tall, narrow, leaned against the far wall where the hall pinched in. The glass was old and cloudy, the kind that turns your skin the color of milk. I kept my eyes down because of the rule, but it pulled at me the way an itch pulls. Don't scratch, don't look. I stared at my shoes instead. Wet laces, mud at the edges, breath fogging the air. The clock ticked. The knocks of rain on the roof synced with my pulse. That's when the voice came, quiet and close, from the dark spine of the house, too near to be a trick of distance. It said my name. Not the name I give strangers. My real one, the one only my family uses when they are serious. It used the exact tone my mother takes when I am in trouble. Soft, patient, disappointed. It said it again, a whisper that slid along the wallpaper and settled behind my ears like cold breath. "Come to the table," the voice said, and the wrapped shapes in the candy dish rustled as if something inside them had just remembered how to breathe. The wrapped shapes inside the dish kept shifting, a faint crinkle that didn't stop even when I froze. I told myself it was the rain dripping through a crack in the roof, but the sound was too steady, too deliberate. My throat tightened as the voice called my name again, closer this time, like it was standing just behind me. I turned, but the hall was empty. Only the portraits on the wall stared back, their gray eyes seeming brighter than before, like the pupils had filled in with shadow. The tick of the clock pressed down heavier, each second dragging out. I should have left right then. I should have slammed the door, run down the steps, and laughed it off. Instead, I whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" The silence that followed wasn't real silence. The rain muted, the clock dulled, the whole house seemed to hold its breath, and then the mirror at the end of the hall pulsed. Not a reflection, more like the glass itself rippled, as if something had pressed its face against the other side. My legs moved without asking my brain. I walked toward it, my sneakers squeaking faintly on the warped boards. The closer I got, the colder the air became, until I could see my breath spilling into the dim. My reflection was barely there, just a pale blur, out of sync with my movements. I raised my hand. The figure in the glass didn't. That's when I knew. The rules on the chalkboard weren't for laughs. They were warnings, and I'd already broken one. Behind me, the front door slammed shut with a finality that shook the frames on the wall. The portraits tilted, some falling, glass cracking across painted faces. I ran back, grabbing for the knob, but it was locked. Not just locked, sealed, as if it had melted into the wood. My pumpkin bag hit the floor, candy scattering across the runner. A whisper slid down the hall again, only now it wasn't alone. It layered, dozens of voices stacked on top of each other, male and female, old and young, all saying the same thing in one long hiss. Midnight. I spun to face the mirror again. The blur inside had sharpened into a person taller than me, skin gray, eyes hollow pits that stretched too wide. Its lips pulled back into a smile that was too human to be human. I stumbled backward, my heel crunching one of the scattered candies. The wrapper burst open, and instead of chocolate, something black and wet oozed across the carpet. The voices grew louder, shaking the walls. The air pressed in on me until I couldn't breathe, until my chest felt bound. Then, with one step forward, the figure in the mirror placed its hand against the glass. The surface bulged inward, stretching thin like ice about to break. I backed up toward the stairs without realizing it, desperate for distance. That's when the mirror hand pushed through, fingers pale and slick, nails scraping wood as they groped for me. And from the second floor above, something knocked back. 3 sharp raps directly over my head. The knocks from above came again, 3 neat taps like knuckles on a lid, then a long scrape as if something heavy shifted its weight across the attic floor. The hand in the mirror flexed. Cold leaked into the hallway with the smell of wet plaster and blown-out candles. I didn't think. I ran. The steps fought me. Each board gave just enough to swallow a shoe and hold. I tore free and took the stairs 2 at a time, shoulder slamming the wall at the landing. The corridor at the top was wrong. Too many doors, too much carpet. Every bedroom looked like a copy of the last. Low bed, oval mirror, lace curtains that didn't move though the window frames rattled with the rain. A chalkboard hung beside each jamb with the same 3 rules written in a careful hand. Every single one had "Do not speak your true name" underlined like it had already been tested and failed. The attic hatch sat at the far end, a string hanging like a vein. I didn't want to pull it, I didn't want to know what knocked. But the mirror arm below was still groping the air, and I needed a way the house hadn't thought to lock. I jumped, caught the string, and yanked. The ladder spat dust as it unfolded. Cold poured down like water. My breath crystallized at the edge of my lips. "Payment," a voice said from the square of dark above. Not the whisper this time. A human voice. Old. Patient. "You took what was not offered. You knocked when the day was over. The street knows the rules. You ignored them. I didn't take anything," I said, half coughing it out, half trying not to say my name in the panic. "I didn't." "The knock is the taking," the voice replied, almost kind. "The knock is a promise." Something moved in the hole. Not a shape, an absence of one. Blacker than the crawl space around it. The floor groaned as it bent toward me, like the weight above it was deciding. I backed away, palms stinging from splinters, and fled down the stairs. The hall mirror was a wound now. The glass had thinned to a wet membrane, and 2 hands pushed through up to the wrist, nails scraping little silver curls from the wood. I shoved past, shoulder to frame, and slammed my body into the front door. What had looked like wood felt like cold stone. The knob refused to turn, the deadbolt invisible and immovable. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I yanked it out. The screen was full of notifications I'd never seen before. Doorbell, 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 stacked until the top edge blurred. From outside, every house on the block chimed at once. Not a cute ding-dong. A long, low note that climbed until it shook my teeth. Through the thin slice of window, I could see porch lights snapping on in unison, a chain of yellow eyes winking awake. The unlit porch I stood on remained dark. Our bell didn't chime. It only listened. The candy dish rustled behind me. I turned. The wrappers weren't wrappers. They were folded slips of parchment tied with thread. Names were written on each in a soft, slanted script. The top one trembled as if a draft had chosen it. The thread came loose and the parchment unfurled. On it, in wet ink that hadn't been there a heartbeat before, was my full name. My throat closed. I didn't say it, I didn't breathe it. I snatched the slip anyway. Stupid. Panicked. And the house reacted like I'd slapped it. Every portrait on the wall turned at once. I swear the eyes followed me. The mirror arms reached farther, elbows grinding through, skin cracking like old paint. Upstairs, the attic ladder creaked under a new weight, slow and careful, each rung accepting a foot. "Dead is simple," the voice said, now coming from the stairs, from the mirror, from the air pressed between the wallpaper and the plaster. "It must be paid by the one who knocks, or by the street that dressed them for the party." I did the only thing left. I ran for the kitchen, hunting a back door, a window, anything. The room I found wasn't a kitchen anymore, just a black rectangle where a door should be. Beyond it, rain hung in sheets like beaded curtains. I pushed through and stumbled onto a porch that didn't belong to this house. Plastic pumpkins grinned in a neat line. A motion sensor witch cackled and spun on a string. Relief hit like heat. I cut across the yard and sprinted for the sidewalk. The long, low chime rolled again. Every bell, every porch light, every yard, like the whole neighborhood had turned to face me. I chose a direction and ran. Houses slid past in a blur of orange and purple. Then I saw the "Do not knock after midnight" sign. I had made a circle. My chest rattled. I turned and ran the other way, cutting through one yard, then another, slipping on wet leaves, vaulting a hedge. I stumbled back onto the same sidewalk, the same sagging porch at the end, the same blank windows watching me. The rain thickened until the street looked like it was underwater. Behind me, heavy steps came down the house's stairs with patient certainty, like a collector counting each riser. "I'm sorry," I said, not sure who I said it to, not sure if apologies meant anything here. I squeezed the parchment so tight the ink bled, and I did the one thing the rules allowed. I didn't speak my name. I tore the slip in half, then into quarters, and fed the pieces to the rain. The chimes stopped. The hands in the mirror withdrew, fingers peeling backward through the skin of the glass. The portraits went flat, eyes dead charcoal again. The front door sighed like a held breath finally let go. When I pulled, it opened as if it had always been unlocked. I didn't run down the steps. I fell. My sneakers slapped water. My knees hit the sidewalk. My pumpkin bucket swung hard and spilled cheap candy across the gutter. I scooped none of it. I walked home with my head down and my mouth shut until the sound of the neighborhood died behind me, until the rain thinned to mist and my street accepted me like nothing had happened. I slept in my clothes. I didn't dream. In the morning, the storm had rinsed the sky clean. Birds argued in the maple outside my window. My phone showed no alerts, no midnight logs, no unknown device messages. For a second, I believed I'd imagined everything. Then I opened my front door to fetch the paper and saw it on my doormat, a single candy wrapped in crinkled parchment and tied with thread. The ink on the slip beneath it was still wet. It said my full name, and under it, in smaller letters, a new rule had been added just for me. Do not answer the bell.